Yeah. Just want to wait for some people to get in. Oh, actually, we can title too as well. Even regardless, I'm going to save it. What's going on, everybody?
We got the Gram, Facebook.
We're Facebook Live right now, and we are Instagram Live right now. So, like I said, as everybody asks questions to get pre-approved, well, now you'll know instantly how to get pre-approved. My name is Justin Flisher. I am a realtor with Keller Williams, and I'm here with
Margaret Anastasio, lender with Cross Country Mortgage.
And like I said, we're here to tell you how to get pre-approved quick and easy. And what we did was have a lot of questions that I took from the lives to show how you guys can get pre-approved. So give them a little background about how they can get pre-approved.
So Justin told me that a lot of the followers are wondering, what do we do as far as first steps? Do we talk to a realtor first? Do we talk to a lender? I often say when you go to buy a car, you don't go out just looking at the car, you get pre-approved, so you kind of know what your numbers are. And a lot of times when Justin will introduce me to a new client, he'll say, hey, talk to her first because you'll get an idea of your budget and what kind of house you're looking for. Because we all know a $300,000 house is different than a $500,000 house. So it's really important to know what your budget is. It's free to talk to a lender. You can talk to a lender with your with your bank. Reach out to a local lender. A lot of local lenders are going to have a lot of resources for you. But really, it starts with budget. It's knowing how much you want to spend on a monthly basis.
Okay. So we'll start off with the questions. Some typical questions that people are asking is it a hard pull?
As far as credit, yes. But it's a different type of algorithm. I always tell clients that, when you're paying attention to Credit Karma or, Experian apps, a lot of people have apps on their bank app, and it'll tell them what their credit score is. A mortgage credit report's a little different. It, kind of looks at your behavior as far as ability to repay. A consumer credit report is more like, how do you spend your credit card? Are you applying for multiple inquiries? So it is a hard pull, but it's something that is necessary for you to get a mortgage credit report to have an idea of what your score is and how that impacts your monthly payment.
Okay. Now, people usually say, okay, when they're going to get pre-approved, they say, my income is fluctuating. What can you say about that?
So oftentimes, my self-employed borrowers will tell me that. A lot of these people are either hairstylists, barbers, they work in the service industry or
so
the
pretty
entertainment.
much self-employed.
Yeah,
self-employed.
Pretty much. So typically you want to have 2 years solid tax returns filed with the IRS to tell you what your income would be on a 2-year average. If it is less than a 2-year average, we have ways around that. I often like to, educate my clients about what those avenues are. So definitely come talk to me if you have less than 2 years. But if your income's fluctuating because you got a raise or you're anticipating a raise, I definitely think it's still okay to start the application, and then we can base your goals off of your future income.
Okay. I guess another question. I'm in the process of paying off my debt. I know a lot of people have debt and they're worried about it, but if somebody says I'm in the process of paying off debt, how would you go about it?
So I hear this a lot. Everybody, they'll be like, hey, I want to pay everything off before I buy a house. But that's a myth, really. because you still want to have some revolving lines of credit, meaning like you want to have some credit cards open. You want the bank to be able to see your spending behavior and, you know, how much utilization you have. Collection accounts, you don't want to pay off any old collection accounts. You want to look to see when's the last date it was reported, and then also the open date, because you really don't want to be paying something off from 2008.
Right.
You know?
What about, would you involve car payments? So like if someone says, okay, I want to buy a new car before I buy a house. I mean, as realtors, we'd be like, no, don't do that. But how does it affect the loan part of that?
So that's a good question, Justin. I often tell people, buy what you can afford. So if your car payment is $300-400, always take that payment, divide that by your gross monthly income, and it'll tell you how much of your income it's affecting. So I don't recommend buying something that's going to be equivalent to your house payment. Like I've seen people lease, like, I don't know, BMWs for $1,200, and I'm like, why would you do that if your mortgage payment is $2,000? You know. So I just say be smart with, if you have to finance a vehicle, be smart on how you finance it. If you're currently financing a vehicle and you're less than 10 months, we actually don't count it against your debt.
Okay, so I guess it's, you know, both of our question, but the question is, I can't afford to live in my neighborhood. So as realtors, you know, we always try to keep them in the area that they like. But as far as, you know, what's the market is saying, you can't, you know, qualify for that area. What would you say about that?
So as a lender, I often tell clients to be flexible. The more flexible you are, the better options are going to be available to you. You know, for some people, this is their starter home. It's not their forever home.
First time home.
So you have to kind of go into that mindset thinking like, all right, I'm going to buy this. I'm going to gain a little bit of equity. I'm going to turn this into an investment. This is how you acquire real estate and, you know, basically build generational wealth. And then you buy up eventually.
Generational wealth. Note that. Okay. Generational wealth. Okay, I'm saving my stimulus. I'm saving my stimulus. What we tell them?
You know, how many times do we hear this in 2020 and 2021?
Saving my stimulus.
So for everybody that got a stimulus check, what was it, like $1,400 or something?
About that, yeah.
I know most of you are like anticipating like, hey, I'm gonna use this for a down payment. Yes, it's good to start somewhere, and if you are anticipating a large tax refund, definitely consult with your tax preparer and a lender to see how that tax refund will work out for you. If you're W-2, you want to see how many exemptions you have on your pay stubs, and then also, you know, are you utilizing the tax benefits of becoming a first-time buyer? So that's stuff that you're going to definitely want to talk to your lender and your tax preparer about.
Okay. I don't know who this question is for, but what are the steps you advise your clients to take? Now, if you're telling me that, I'm sending you straight to her, because as realtors, we don't do anything until you get pre-approved, which helps us understand how much you're working with, what the market can offer you, and, you know, how to go about it. So
also, I think you can't show them the house these days without a pre-approval letter, right?
you could, but as a realtor, you're taking a gamble. It's just your time wasted. You know, you want to have clients that are actually serious about the market and actually want to do it, rather than people that just, oh, hey, I'm approved for this, but where did you get your pre-approval? How much do you actually have? Because in today's market, well, in today's era, you know, it's all about lies and, you know, scamming and whatever. So never really know until it's down on paper, until you get pre-approved. So that's what I do first is, hey, go talk to a loan officer, preferably Margaret, talk to her, and, you know, run the numbers, and we'll see what we can do.
So when a client approaches me and says, hey, I am looking to buy a house, oftentimes I'll ask them, like, what's your time frame? Because if you are not trying to buy until next year, and realistically, you know, you need that year to get, you know, your stuff together, it kind of helps me gauge my next following questions. If I know that you need to move in the next 30, 60, 90 days, then I'm going to ask you a different set of questions, and I'm going to help you prepare your documentation so you're ready to go. A lot of times people just are curious. They're like, what can I afford with my current income? So I'll give them a lot of general ideas. But really, it starts with filling out an application. It's free to fill out an application with
A lot of
me.
people don't know that it's free.
Yeah, it's absolutely free. Yes, my time is valuable, but I like to invest my time in clients because I think the education is more valuable than the money, you know? So it's free to fill out an application, but definitely also have your documentation ready. So if you know you need to like go dig up some tax returns or go find your last year's W-2 or piece together your income history or figure out how much money you're going to need to make in the next year, definitely have that dialed in, or talk to a lender and then we can dial that in for you. As far as savings, we talked about taking like the stimulus or your tax refund, or if you have an inheritance, but making smart moves as far as investing and how to have your money work for you while you're waiting to get into a home.
Okay. A lot of people don't know that actually. With her, it's free. You do the application. You don't have to pay for it.
Yeah, and we're all busy, we're working, and life gets a hold of us. But if you have a couple minutes for us to just set, even a text conversation, I could start off with text and kind of figure out what your goals are, and then from there we can kind of plan out what your mortgage plan is going to look like.
I'm gonna take a question from the comments real quick. It says, what about for a self-employed person who gets paid cash but has bank statements, etc.?
That's a really good question. So for my self-employed borrowers, there's several apps out there these days to keep track of how much income you're earning. So definitely start with something like that. Get with a tax preparer so you know how much income you need to claim, so you know what the difference is between gross receipts and taxable income and actually adjusted gross income. And then also I have some unique products that do only require bank statements. So there's something called a bank statement loan where you can simply take the income from your bank statements and use that as your income.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm even learning here, sitting here. Okay. I guess, we'll go to this question. How much should I have or put down?
So if you're going to utilize a down payment assistance program, you always want to have at least your deposit, your earnest money deposit. And Justin, typically, how much is that in San Diego? Was it 2.5% of the purchase price?
2.5%, yeah.
Okay. So if you can at least save up your earnest money deposit and let me take care of the rest, we'll either plan to see how much money you need down. I always tell people you want to have generally 3% of the purchase price. Down payment assistance programs allow us to cover the down payment, but they don't allow us to cover closing costs. So you want to have a deposit plus closing costs. It's kind of like when you go for a rental, like you typically want first and last month's rent. That's usually what you want to kind of gauge yourself. You want to have first month's mortgage payment, last month's mortgage payment, and another deposit, So you could start there, really.
Sure. This is one I get a lot. But what does your credit score have to be pre-approved?
Okay, so there's government programs out there that allow a 600 credit score. There are programs out there that you can do for down payment assistance that require a 640, 660. You just have to remember that it's not always about score. A lot of times I can take a person's credit, analyze it through my stimulator, and figure out how fast is it going to take you to get to where you have a qualifying score.
That's what a lot of people get nervous about. I know score. Just, hey, can I get approved for this?
Yeah. So a lot of times when people are like, talking about their scores, it's because there's some blemishes on credit. There's a lot of erroneous information. Like there's things on there that we're like, wow, I didn't even know that was affecting my score. So those are the kind of questions we need to be asking, not just like, hey, what score do I need?
Right.
It's like, how am I going to get from point A to point B?
Right. I like that answer. I like that answer a lot. Stop focusing on the score. Just do it. Okay. What's a very misconception on what you need to get pre-approved? It's a good question.
That is a really good question. I like that. Most people think you have to have a ton of money in the bank. You gotta have 720 FICO, and what if I started my job less than 2 years ago? I think ideally, I'm gonna go back to what I said in the beginning. It starts with a plan. So as soon as you're able to plan and figure out where you're at right now, then you're gonna know where you're gonna need to be. But really, it's those three pieces: is knowing where you're at credit wise, savings wise, income wise. A lot of people these days, especially after the pandemic, they were either furloughed and they're back at work, and they're like, how does that affect me? And I'm like, as long as you've been back at work and you have like somewhat of a solid stream of income, let's take a look at that and figure out what we need to plan for.
Question from Facebook. Can you explain debt to income ratio, including student loans?
Absolutely. That's such a good question. So depending on which program type you're looking at. So FHA, they usually require 0.5% of the balance. That's how they look at your student loan payment. But we also look at IDRs, which is income-driven repayment plans. So that's something that I typically tell my clients to look into. But we can discuss that more as you reach out and figure out, okay, where am I at monthly payment wise, and where do my student loans need to be monthly payment wise. So I kind of do some reverse engineering. I hope that answers your question.
Kind of good question, but what qualifies you? Yes, what qualifies you?
To buy a house?
Yeah, what qualifies you? That's all we got. What qualifies you?
So really, you have to have a valid stream of income. Most people, they either have some form of a steady income, or if they are self-employed, they know on average how much they make. Again, I take it back to my number one thing, which is knowing what your budget is. Like, if you know how much you can afford rent-wise, then you know how much you can kind of have an idea how much you can afford mortgage payment-wise, right? So having a budget is super important, and then from there, having that stream of income, but also paying attention to how your credit is looked at.
Okay. And I guess I'll throw in a question too. What would you advise people, like, before the whole process? Like, what are the do's and do nots? As in, first things first, don't go buy a new car. Just straight up, don't
if
go buy a
you
new car.
can refrain from making any large purchases or putting anything large on a credit card, that would be ideal. Also, a lot of people don't trust banks. I don't know if you know this, but they put
bank loans.
Yeah, they put money in like their mattress, and I often tell people, like, in order for that money to be able to be used for a down payment, you're gonna have to want to start putting that money in the bank and having that money seasoned. So as far as dues, continue to save, know what your budget is. As far as don't apply for any new credit, large purchases. Try not to co-sign for someone. That's another thing. I've had a lot of clients, they say, oh, I co-signed for my dad or my brother. But even though you're co-signing for them and you're not responsible for that debt, if that debt is new, it's counted against you. If that debt is 12 months older, then we can possibly get like proof of payment to offset that debt.
Any questions from either Facebook or Instagram?
These are a lot of good questions, you guys, and I'm so excited to be live with Justin and
definitely was needed, because I definitely feel like why I refer a lot of people to Margaret is because we're really big on education, and I feel like, not to throw shade or anything, but I feel like a lot of people in the business just do straight business. We actually care about you and want to see, anybody can get in the home, but can you stay in the home? That's real beneficial, I feel like, for a lot of people. So, we do businesses like connection, less business, but more big on the connection to make sure that, you're getting taken care of, rather than, oh yeah, here's any realtor, here's any loan officer, you're good with this interest rate. No, we're actually going to make sure that you can maintain and stay in the home. So
yeah, it's really important that I listen to your goals. That's one thing you're going to hear a lot from me is let's goal plan, let's mortgage plan, because I often listen to the cues of like what they want to do later. So as far as building generational wealth, like I can hear it in most people's voice, like this is not my forever home. This is a starter home for me. I need you to help me get wealthy.
For a lot of people, it's like their first investment property.
Yeah, their
like
first investment
home,
property
first investment
or something like that. Especially for young people, we're just like trying to figure out how to get a leg up in life. And real estate is definitely one of those avenues that you want to take as far as, being able to acquire assets, acquire, different goals.
All right. In order to qualify, you cannot have any collections.
No, that's a myth. If you have medical collections under $1,000, there's ways around that. Depends on the collections. So I want to be really thorough on that. If you have any judgments or any federal liens, like tax liens, child support liens, stuff like that where you owe the government, it's a little bit difficult to be able to get past those collections. So it just depends on what type of collections it is, but definitely talk to us and we'll put you in the right direction and help you figure it
out. Somebody said, can I have you as my lender if I already have somebody I can use as an agent? Of course.
Yeah, you can pretty much pick whoever you want to work with.
Yeah.
I mean, there's people that Justin have introduced to me and they're like, hey, it's not the right time, and then I've seen them work with other people, but
right.
You really want it to be a good fit. So
right.
Something that Justin and I do is we get to know our clients, figure out what their goals are, and let's make sure it's a good fit for all three of us, because that is the best transaction, is if you can get a really knowledgeable, good lender on your side who's listening to your goals, as well as an agent who understands what it is that you are qualified for versus just what your wants are.
Right.
And then you have a motivated buyer like yourself, that's the perfect transaction.
Right. How long does it usually take to close after submitting an offer?
It depends, Justin.
Depends. How many? Hey, it depends for me. However fast we can close.
The fastest I've closed on a loan, you guys, was 10 days.
10, 14, 21,
I've done
30.
10, 14, 21, 30. I've done 45, 60-day closes depending if the seller needed more time. Really it depends on what's negotiated on that contract.
Right.
So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that one's up in the air. That's up in the air. Okay, I think this is a little more personal, but I'm in between LA and Sacramento, and I'm just wondering, I have a family member that's an agent, but I feel like his lender is a little shady. Just wondering.
Well, to answer that question, if you have a gut feeling that someone is not being as honest as you'd like them to be, listen, Justin and I are straight up. Like, we are going to tell you the truth, and oftentimes the truth is very bold. So it's super important, though. There's no reason for us to kind of like skirt the issue or anything like that. But it's super important to be very transparent about people's situation, because it affects timelines a lot, I would say. Like, if somebody thinks they're going to be in a home in 90 days, but they're really like 6 months out, we don't like to do those false beliefs.
Yeah, no, literally. So, well, we're already at 25 minutes anyway.
These were a lot of good questions.
A lot of good questions.
I'm glad you guys tuned in.
Is there any last second questions before we hop off here? I hope this provided a lot of value for you guys. I know it's been, a long time waiting, but, I know this is well needed for a lot of people, and a lot of people don't understand, how to get pre-approved in today's market. So I hope this answered a lot of questions. Instagram usually a little slower behind, so let's wait a couple seconds just to see. Any other advice for anybody?
No, I just say start now, because the longer you wait, I often tell clients interest rates may rise and it may put you out of a certain buying power. So start now. Just talk to a lender. Get with Justin. If you get with Justin, he'll probably most likely send you my way.
That's the first thing I do. I introduce
I look
everything.
forward to meeting any one of you guys and being a resource to any of you guys. But I definitely think it's a good idea to start talking to someone now, even if you think you're a year out or just need to know,
Because there's always a question you might have, and we're here to answer it for anything, whether it's the loan side or the real estate side. So.
Absolutely. You can find us on social media. We're very active on Facebook, Instagram. I'm like married to my phone. So I'm here to be a resource for you guys, and just, hopefully I get to connect with y'all soon.
It's definitely. And what's the email to touch to get in both of you? I'll DM you both of our emails. So
Yes, you'll have
I'll
our
do that.
contact information.
Okay. I appreciate you guys all, about 15 people in here. I appreciate you guys joining the live, and I hope that definitely brought some knowledge to you guys. Any other questions or concerns, message us. We're always on our phones, like we said, married to it. Just let us know.
All
Appreciate
right,
it.
y'all. Have a good day.
See you guys.
Money Monday.
Money Monday, for real.